Hey guys, and welcome to my world building vlog. So my name is Erin and I'm a writer. I am working on several fantasy pieces, and so I'm just doing a world building series, kind of going through some of the stuff that I've had to think about creating my world. So today's topic is going to be architecture, which I think is endlessly fascinating because it's one of those things that when you first travel somewhere, you really notice, because often the architecture is extremely different from wherever you're from. With architecture, you're going to want to sort of create a mental picture for your readers. It's one of those things that you can use to craft the world in your head. You can talk about the building materials, the styles, all of the differences that you would notice if you go and look up a picture of, say, London or Beijing. You're going to notice all of these really neat architectural components that are going to give you the feeling of like this is someplace different. You should have a good idea of your architecture, even if you're not going to go into a whole lot of detail explaining it, but it gives you a good idea of the aesthetics for your society. If you want some inspiration for this, you can look through different cultures, different points in history, and you can kind of figure out why certain architectural choices are made, what the value is for the society, and what in the histories come together to create this particular aesthetic. You're also going to want to make sure that your architectural style fits the climate that you've developed. Certain building materials, certain styles are going to be a lot more applicable if you're in the desert, if you're in a cold climate, if you're in the jungle. And you can get a lot of really cool examples of history of how they managed to make their climates more comfortable. A good example of this is the Persian wind catchers, which are basically ancient air conditioning. I have a surprise cat. He was wandering around on the floor crying. So now he gets to be a cameo. Another cool example of architecture is with Rome, where they had their in-floor heating. You can take advantage of a lot of ancient knowledge because if you're having a place there, the technology level is less than modern day. There's still lots of ancient opportunities that you can employ to make your buildings more comfortable to live in. Another example is if your particular geography and climate is subject to yearly flooding or excessive rains, that sort of thing. You can take some inspiration from, say, the stilt houses in Hoi An, Vietnam. People use architecture to adapt to their environments. So figure out what your weather patterns are going to be like, what your people have to deal with, and you can adapt your architecture accordingly. When you're considering what the buildings are looking like, figure out what are the building materials available. If you're going to be living near a forest, you're going to have access to a lot of wood. If you're in the mountains, you have granite and that sort of thing. If you're choosing something that really doesn't fit where they live, then people may notice. You can just insert a comment and be like, hey, imported from here, or anything that makes it more believable. Which items are viewed as a luxury and which ones are commonly used? Because in a lot of cases, if you're going to have places like palaces, churches, government buildings, those are going to be using more expensive materials, but it's not going to be available to the population at large. How does the architecture differ based on income? If you are having the poorer districts separate from the wealthier districts, then the architecture used in both of those is going to be a lot different in most cases, unless you are strictly egalitarian, everyone gets the same housing options. If you're going to have everything together, keeping the poor and the wealthy all in the same areas, historical examples of top floor versus bottom floor living. So in places where we have elevators, everyone wants to live on the top floor. It's the safest, it's convenient, it's secure. But in ancient times, when you had to haul your water, haul your food up flights of stairs, the wealthier people would live on the main floor because it was the most accessible. And you'll see this in the Roman apartment buildings from way back when. Multi-layer, the higher you went, the cheaper it was to live because it was a bitch to haul all of your things up every day, multiple times a day. No one wants to do that if they have the money to avoid it. So I hope that gives you a good idea of getting started on some of your architecture in your fantasy world building. You can use this to really enrich your environment because you're creating a better mental picture of the world that's in your head so that readers can also understand what you want them to see. It can be a little difficult because obviously real-world countries don't exist in your fantasy world, but you can still take architectural inspiration from them, give it basic descriptions that bring those to mind without specifically mentioning any of those countries or societies. So that is all I've got for you today on architecture. I hope that helps a little bit. I will see you guys next Wednesday with a new vlog. I'll put all my social media and whatnot in the descriptions. Feel free to hit me up if you have any questions. Bye guys.